Hey everybody, it's Yoli Medina, and I am continuing to cover the Bryan Kohberger case. And I don't feel really bad about it because the family the family of the victim still have questions, and I do too. I just saw a recent episode of Court TV with Vinnie Politan, who was talking to the attorney for the Gonsalves family, and they have unanswered questions. And the leaks of the information, I shouldn't say leaks, but the slow pace of the information coming out is it's awful. And I get that. And so one of the things that's always not bothered me, but made me think, like, how do they know? And so this was the prosecution saying that Bryan Kohberger turned off his phone before committing the crimes. And because the prosecution's experts never really came out and said in some kind of affidavit or in some testimony how they knew he turned off his phone before the crimes, that question has always remained in my mind. So what I want to do is talk about the affidavit of Cy Ray, and I held off on talking about it because I don't know anything about cell phones. I'm not a tech person, and I try to stay in my lane. But now I just have questions, and I don't think anybody can fault me for having questions, but if they do, oh well. So I want to share the declaration of Cy Ray. And before I do, in case somebody's watching this video and you don't know what I'm referring to, this is the case where Bryan Kohberger pled guilty to taking the lives of 4 students: Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Kaylee Gonsalves, and Maddie Mogan. And they were living at a home near the University of Idaho. And they were unalived in a brutal fashion, and Bryan Kohberger pled guilty. And one of the pieces of evidence that the prosecution had was that he turned off his phone before committing the crimes. And so my curiosity is, how do they know that? And so Cy Ray, who is a well-known expert in law enforcement, very well known, very respected, I believe, he provided an affidavit in support of the defense, meaning Bryan Kohberger's part, the defense's objection to the state's motion in limine to preclude reference to any AT&T timing advance records of Bryan Kohberger. And timing advance records are alleged, well, I don't say allegedly, but my understanding is that they're more specific in terms of where a person was, assuming they have the phone, where the phone was at a certain time period. And they're not just regular cell phone records that can pinpoint where you are connecting to, but they're more specific. That's my understanding. I could be wrong, but that's my understanding. And so Cy Ray submitted his affidavit in support of this objection to the defense or to the prosecution's motion in limine to preclude any reference to Bryan Kohberger's AT&T timing advance records. And I want to go to that because it's important for me and maybe for other people. Okay, so I'm here, and this is the affidavit of Cy Ray regarding AT&T timing advance data. So, and this was a part of a notice of filing the affidavit in support of defendant's objection to the state's motion in limine, that means to exclude AT&T timing in advance records. So we go, and here's the affidavit, and I'm going to skip all of his qualifications because he is qualified and that's not the issue. But what I do want to do is I want to talk about timing advance and what that means according to Cy Ray. Timing advance records are maintained by cellular network providers that provide time measurement. This time measurement refers to the amount of time it takes a radio signal to travel from a cell site to a mobile device and back to the cell site. Given the signal travels at a known constant speed of light, it is possible to use the measurement to determine the distance the mobile device is from a known cell site. Okay, so that's the definition of timing advance. And under timing advance number 3 in his affidavit, Cy says, given these records are available in a historical context, and the records he's referring to are AT&T timing advance records, it is possible to conduct an analysis of timing advance data to pinpoint historical locations of a mobile device at a given date and time. It is also possible to determine routes of travel, stagnation, and when a mobile device is powered on and off. And so my understanding, and this is from Cy declaration, affidavit, and I don't know if he's telling the truth or not. He signed it under the penalty of perjury, so I assume he's telling the truth, that the AT&T timing advance records can show when a mobile device is powered on and off. So that's interesting. And this is me trying to understand how the prosecution knew he powered off his phone before the crimes. So if we go to the section called AT&T timing advance records in the state's possession. Okay, so I'm going to read number 1. It says, during this investigation, law enforcement obtained the following AT&T timing advance data. And I'm going to go to number C. Law enforcement also requested a tower dump consisting of AT&T timing advance data. This request involved AT&T providing all of the connections between 2 specific cell sites in Moscow during a 2-hour period. The data produced was AT&T timing advance data, and that was produced by AT&T. So Cy declares or states under the penalty of perjury, in all there were over 3,800 AT&T mobile phones identified in this timing advance tower dump data. Okay, so my questions are, was Bryan Kohberger's phone in that 3,800 AT&T mobile phones identified? I mean, was his phone number identified? That's the first question. The second question is that how they know if he was in the 3,800 people who were downloaded or identified in the timing advanced tower dump data that was in the 2-hour period when the crime occurred? Is that how they know that he turned his phone off? And I don't know the answer to that. I'm asking questions. And so the problem with this declaration is that those questions are not answered. And I would think that an expert would answer that question, because instead, Cy talks about methods of getting the AT&T timing advance records. And he talks about a Mr. Boyd Jackson. And he says that Boyd Jackson is associated with the state's records regarding the AT&T timing advance records. And unfortunately, this affidavit doesn't answer those 2 questions that I have. So when the judge kind of said something like Cy Ray is a conspiracy theorist, which was, I think, in my opinion, I'm not a judge, but in my opinion, as an attorney who's been before many judges, that probably is not something appropriate that you would want to say. But he said it, so be it. So I'm very confused as to all these communications about these AT&T timing advance records and whether or not Ashley Jennings knew or should have known that AT&T timing advance data did exist in 2022. She was directly involved in the legal process of obtaining it and was aware of work product created from it to further the investigation. I'm not sure because look, if Cy Ray is saying that the way you determine whether a phone is turned off or on, a cell phone, is through timing advance data. Okay? That's what Cy Ray is saying. I have no idea if it's true. But assume it's true. And assume, as this affidavit says, 3,800 people were downloaded or they did a tower dump of all these people. Well, was Bryan Kohberger in there? His phone in there, and that's how they know? Because the second thing I would say is after saying that AT&T timing advance records would show if someone powered down their phone or turned off their phone, the next thing I would say is Bryan Kohberger was not in the 3,800 phones that were downloaded. I mean, that's assuming that I'm correct. And I would say, therefore, the defense has no way of understanding how the prosecution is alleging that he turned off his phone if the timing advance records of these 3,800 tower dump people who were in the vicinity at the area at the crime, how he turned his phone off. Because if he's not in there, then according to Cy Ray, how do you know he turned his phone off? And so the prosecution comes back with, well, he wasn't in the 3,800 tower dump because he turned his phone off. And it's just a conundrum, and I have zero experience with this, but it's something that I wanted to talk about because I have questions and I want to know how you know if somebody turned their phone off. I mean, I'm not a criminal, but I mean, I want to know. And I think there's a lot of unanswered questions in this affidavit. And also, too, this affidavit accuses the prosecution of prosecutorial misconduct. Let me find that. Yeah. It says number 3 at the end, in nearly 30 years of working with and for prosecutors all over the states, I never witnessed such a deliberate attempt by prosecutors to mislead the court on evidence in such plain sight. Anyone making such a claim would have to believe that the court is incapable of reviewing physical evidence in possession of the state and the defense. It rises to a level beyond a simple miscommunication or oversight and is clear and intentional misrepresentation in the hopes to conceal a much larger issue. And that much larger issue, quote unquote, is not defined. And so the court is like, what? What larger issue? So this affidavit backfired. And I can kind of see how it backfired. And I just want to know, how do you know if someone powered their phone off at a certain time period in a certain location? Because they're saying that Bryan Kohberger powered his phone off before the crimes. So this would be at a certain location before he got to the crime scene. So I just want to know, how do you determine that? And according to Ray, it's the AT&T timing advance records, which law enforcement got 3,800 of them. And if I had been in that area during the crime scene and I had AT&T service, my information would be in there. So I just have questions. And it's not a crime to have questions. So the family still has questions, and I see why. In any event, that is what I'm concerned with. Not concerned, I just want to know. I'm curious. So let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you guys on the next one.